Hi, I'm Allison. Welcome to the reading room. Figured I should finally say the name of my channel at some point. Today I'm going to do a VR to the hashtag only 10 decks by Katey Flowers, I think at first, and then a ton of people have been responding, so it's been very fun to see. I'm jumping on a little bit late, but it was one of the hashtags that kind of pushed me over into finally trying to make some videos. So the thing I learned in doing this hashtag, okay, so it was really hard for me to do this hashtag, but not for the reason that it seems to be hard for most tarot readers, which is that how can they possibly narrow down their collection to only 10 decks? The thing that was hard for me is that I found I don't even have 10 decks. I have a good sized tarot collection. It's not as big as some, but it's definitely more than just a few. It's over here, so that's why I'm looking at my shelves. It needs shelves, for example, but of those decks that I like, I enjoy them all, but I don't know, they're just like, there weren't even close to 10 that I absolutely had to have, I could not get rid of, and I would be devastated if I couldn't have it with me. So that was something interesting to learn from doing this hashtag. But I did manage to find 10, and these are definitely 10 decks that I love, and they are the, I think of my collection, the 10 that I would want to take with me if I could only take these 10. So I'll start with the tarot decks. The other thing that was interesting is that it ended up being mostly Oracle decks, maybe close to half and half, but they're under the camera, so I'm gonna have to lean in close. Okay, so the tarot decks. Well, first I would have to take a Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Just sort of come to accept the fact that I am a Rider-Waite-Smith reader. I know it's not like the coolest thing to be these days, but I like the system. I'm finally comfortable with it after learning for 3 or 4 years, and so I kind of I think I want to kind of stay in it for a little while, and before I start to branch out. I want to kind of be in the system that I learned for a little while, and then maybe start to work on some of these decks that do their own thing that I have in my collection, but I haven't read a lot with, because I was still trying to just get the hang of tarot, in one system for the last few years. So this is, it's the Rider-Waite-Smith deck that I would take if I could only take one, and I have a handful of different, versions and stuff. This is the 1909 art restoration deck. And I will put to the couple of decks that I have that aren't mass market or that I haven't really seen a lot about online. I can put the link where to get them in the Dropbox, just in case you guys are interested. But it's from GameCrafter. It opens up. It has this maroon box that I think is trying to be close in color to the original box. But the whole point of this deck is that that's an extra card. These are the actual backs. It is a restoration of the deck, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck that was released in 1909, or one of the copies in the world. So it was, I think if I get my history right, the Rider-Waite-Smith was released in 1909 with a very, very limited print run, almost like a soft opening. And then some things were kind of changed and then it was re-released, and that's the Pam A that everybody talks about. So this is pre-Pam A, I think, 1909, Roses and Lilies backs. But I like this one. Let's see. Well, let me give you some facts. It was restored by someone who's going by the name of C. Or C in London, I think. I can't tell which. C in London is the name that they're going by. It's from Drive-Thru Cards. The cardstock is really not good. It's kind of has a weird coating that has already started to chip on mine. I'm not a super cardstock snob. I have my favorites, but I'm not gonna not buy a deck because of the cardstock. But it is chipping, and I don't use it that much really. I just kind of use it to reference. But I don't know. I like the fact that it's the closest I'll get to owning, a piece of history, of tarot history. I like that it was very minimally restored. It was restored a bit, but very, very minimally. Let's see. It has a little info card, so I'm trying to see what it says. Bum, bum, bum. It says a meticulous manual cleaning and repairing process on each of the 78 cards was conducted to decontaminate conservatively the excess dirt that obscured the artwork. So I think it was restored in the same way as art is restored. So very conservatively rather than like, you know, garishly or something. So I like it. If I had to choose between this and the study deck, which is another sort of just, I think that one is like just scans of one of the original Pam A decks that are still available, I would choose this one just because I think that the details are more clear. And I just, I know it's a little grainy. Whoa, I'm losing cards here. I know it's a little grainy. Like you can see the graininess kind of in the sky there. But I just like the coloration. You know, I like these little details, how the color comes outside the line sometimes. There are still some smudges. Sorry, it's cloudy outside today, so I'm kind of dealing with some creative lighting solutions. So yeah, so I mean, you've seen the Rider-Waite-Smith a bunch, but I like this particular edition. If I had to only keep one, even though the cardstock is kind of terrible and I don't super like shuffling it, I still would want one that referenced the very first edition of the Rider-Waite-Smith. Like all the pebbles down here, I don't think I've really noticed that coloration in other decks, other Rider-Waite-Smith copies that I've had before. So if I had to keep, I would want to keep one Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and if I was only going to be able to have one, I think I would keep this one. I have a vintage one. I think it might actually be from the early 2000s, so it's not that exciting. And it's like the papery cardstock that's very nice to shuffle. Doesn't have any laminate or anything, but I still think I would keep that one over that one. So moving on, the next tarot deck that I would keep is the Fountain Tarot. I really love this deck. It was the first deck that I really used for any set period of time and really kind of bonded with. And it was not the first deck that I had. It wasn't even in the first 10 decks that I had. I think I got this like a year and a half into studying tarot, and I didn't even really think I wanted it. I think I had even been able to look at it at a bookstore and was just like, oh no, I don't think this is for me. But Danielle at Oak Moon Tarot on Instagram at that point was using this all the time for all of her pulls. And, you know, she pulls for poetry and quotes and stuff, and they're always so amazing and moving. And so I think I just thought, okay, I'll give it a try. You know, if it's good enough for Oak Moon Tarot, it's good enough for me. And I did, and I really love it. I like that, usually I like my tarot decks to be very clear. Like I like to know what card I'm looking at. But this one is not that most of the time, but it just like, I don't know, I feel an emotion with each card. So it's a deck that I go to when I want to like, I don't know. It's hard to describe, but like this Ace of Cups, it just has some of my favorite depictions. Like the sun, I love this sun so much. The joy in this sun just comes across perfectly. Or this Three of Cups is amazing and it's beautiful. I know some people think that this deck is mean or is cold. I don't feel that at all. This star is one of my favorite stars. I don't know. I just feel like I really love this deck, and it gives me a lot of feels when I use it. This Fool jumping off that cliff, I get like the emotion of each card immediately. I actually really like this. King of Cups, I think I've heard a lot of people saying they don't like it, but I really like how he's in the ocean, he's in the waves, but that he's got that protection that's sort of letting him, you know, not be too affected by the waves. So he's like handling his emotions, but he's not being dragged under by them. So yeah, I just think it's beautiful and I love it. And it was the first deck that I felt like I had actually like created a bond with. So it would definitely come Plus the mass market packaging is awesome. It's really good quality. The next, I was gonna say the last, but there is actually one more tarot deck. The next tarot deck that I would take is the Starseeker Tarot. And this is the second one that I probably really felt bonded to. I only got this, let's see, I got it at the end of last year. So the end of 2020, and I used it during those really, you know, the darkest months. It's the Tower. So December and January and February, and it just felt so gentle. I don't know, it was like a whole experience using this deck. I don't love every card in this deck. Let me see if I can find some for you that are not my favorite. It's not my aesthetic at all. Like, you know, I don't feel, this is the King of Wands. I don't feel particularly moved by that King of Wands. But there's just like some sort of, I mean, some cards of course are amazing. I'm not gonna say I don't like the art at all. Some cards are amazing. I'm just saying, like, it's not like every card is my favorite card ever. Like, I'm not particularly attached to this Fool. I mean, I think the symbolism is cool, but I'm not particularly attached to like those suns or moons in the sky. But just the process of using this deck is like a whole, it's like a whole mood. It's very, very gentle, and it just feels gentle. It just sort of like emanates this soothing quality. It's got these really cool purpled matte edges, which I love. If you're gonna do an edge, I would prefer a matte edge. I love the backs, and I was delighted to find, I never was able to see this on any recording. There's actually like a little rainbow in the backs, kind of up here. I don't think it's gonna show, but it's just like a tiny, tiny little touch, and it's so sweet when I'm shuffling. And so, I don't know. I just got a lot of comfort from this deck when I really, you know, needed it in the winter of 2020. The Hermit is really nice. It's that really, really intense, like rose petal, you know, soft touch. As I learned on Lisa Pepez's recent video about cardstock, soft touch feel. So it's hard to shuffle. I mean, I manage it. I manage to riffle shuffle it. You just kind of have to push when you're getting it back together. And I overhand too, but I actually do. I shuffle, this deck is the only deck I really shuffle this way. I kind of riffle it once or twice, and then I just take it in clumps. And I go, I don't know how to show this. I go a little clump on the bottom, a little clump on the top, a little clump on the bottom. And I just do this through the whole deck while I'm thinking of my question. And it really, really, really makes me slow down. Because even I tend to be, when I riffle, overhand shuffle, I'm still pretty hard. Like, I'm really kind of like throwing the cards down, and I really try not to be, because it messes up the edges worse than riffling. Doing this and kind of like slamming them into each other when I accidentally hit them, it really messes up the edges. So I try to be super gentle, but sometimes I just forget. I'm just kind of like, you know, shuffling hard. So having to do this, because it's really, really intense rose petal finish, makes me slow down. And I think it's just part of the whole process of using the deck. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to say I hate rose petal finish, because I love how it feels on this deck. And actually, I don't hate rose petal finish. I understand why people would be frustrated with it and not like the experience. But because of the way that I shuffle and I use my tarot cards, it doesn't bother me. And I really do like the added like tactile experience. It makes the cards feel super duper special. So the Starseeker Tarot, a whole mood, and definitely one I just got it out to use again. I just did a reading with it last night, and it was like, oh, it was so lovely. So I'll start putting them back there again. Last tarot deck, and then we'll move on to Oracle, is the Tarot of Enchantment Tarot. And actually, I was surprised by this one, because I had never used this one for readings. It's got one of those giant books, which is beautiful, but it's kind of like one of those decks I feel like Llewellyn's starting to spend more on their packaging and their books than they are the actual cards. And I would much rather it was the other way around. Despite loving books, it's like I don't need a book that good. I love fantasy. and fairy tale. I've been reading fantasy books for as long as I can remember, and they're still my favorite genre. It's still like my preferred genre. And actually, I spent most of 2020 and 2021, like halfway in from last year into this year, rereading my favorite author from when I was a kid, named Tamara Pierce. She did these, like Alana the Lioness was a quartet that she did. And she has a whole world called Tortal, and I've reread all of the ones in that world, and it was just like the best time ever. But so I don't actually use this one for readings very much, but I just absolutely love the art, and I just love the world that it creates. And it's the only deck I have. It's of all the fantasy decks I have, like the Green Witch Tarot, which I know is meant to be a Green Witch Tarot, but I think of it as like my medieval fantasy books in a deck. So that's how I think of it. Or like the Everyday Witch Tarot. I mean, you know, this one gets the closest to, I don't know, like fantasy worlds that I have spent a long time living in. So even though like I don't read with it a lot, I would still want it to be able to kind of look through. And I love this artist. What's her name? Is it going to be on here? It's got to be on the box. Yes. Oh, now I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. Mariella Allwood? She painted, I follow her on Instagram, and she painted the original paintings that she did are not much bigger than the tarot cards themselves. And I think that's amazing. She always has, gosh, I'm dropping them all over the place. On her Instagram, she'll have her original painting like next to something really tiny, like an acorn or a quarter, just so you can see the scale of it. So yeah, that one would have to stay with me. And I'm going to put it in the box because all of my stuff is on the bed underneath the camera, and I don't want my cards falling everywhere. So sorry guys while I take a couple minutes to put the deck away. Okay, so that was 1, 2, 3, 4. Everything else is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, everything else is an Oracle deck, which makes sense for me. I like to read tarot. I mean, I think I read tarot more than I read Oracle, but because I'm in mostly the Rider-Waite system, I found I don't need, like, I like to buy new tarot decks, but I don't tend to like use them as much. But I use a lot of Oracle decks because each one is different. Each one is its own, you know, concept, its own art. So I feel like there's more room in my collection for a proliferation of Oracle decks, whereas tarot decks, I find I'm getting to a point where it's like, yeah, well, I kind of have one like that. Or that one doesn't really add anything new. Sorry, just drink some tea because one day at a time. So, and Oracle decks, a lot of times it's just easier for me if I'm feeling, you know, just like, ugh, so tired, I can't. So the first one I showed in my last video, if you watched that, but I'll show it again. It's the Inquire Within deck. And this one, like I said then, it's always nurturing. It's always encouraging. It's not an affirmation deck, but it's sort of in that same vein in that it's not balanced. It's not meant to be used as a tarot deck. It's not really meant to be used in spreads. It's just like, you know, when I'm tired, it's been a hard day. I just need some, oops, sorry. I don't know what happened to there. I just need some encouragement. I will go and I'll just pull a card from this deck. Actually, it does work really super well. I used to use this deck all the time with the Fountain Tarot in like a conversational reading, you know, where you're like asking a question and pulling a card, and that leads to another question, and you pull another card. And then every once in a while, just when I felt like it, I would pull one of these to go with the card I just pulled, and it always just worked super well that way. So that's the Inquire Within deck. Put that back here. Next, I've also talked about a couple of times, and I think that's just because this is where I'm at with my practice right now. It's the box is put away, so I'll show you the guidebook. This is the Postcards from the Liminal Space by Bakara Wintner. Those are the backs. I feel like everyone's probably seen these, but I just like the messages. Like I'm sort of tired. Ugh, I dropped so many cards. I'm sort of tired of Oracle decks that just have like a one-word keyword and then art. I don't know. I have been enjoying these sort of more creative keywords, like phrases as keywords. And actually I used this one last night with the Starseeker Tarot just because they were both out. So I just grabbed them on it. It gave me a really awesome reading. I do have Bakar Wintner's tarot deck, but I don't have the book. I haven't super followed her or anything, but I don't know. I just find this deck to really work well. It's just unique. It's creative. It always pulls something new out. I haven't ever pulled a card where I just was like, oh no, that doesn't mean anything. They're all kind of like left of center enough, like oddball enough to get me thinking in a way that I can always tie it back to whatever question I'm thinking about. You'd think they would be too specific, like the rhythms and fate and the tickings of time. This is not how the story ends. Elevate. I mean, you'd think they'd be too specific, but they're not. They're really not. They always seem to work somehow. So definitely that one would be on my list. And I don't know did I drop the guidebook also? Oh no. Okay. Well, I'll have to look after the video. Okay. The next and my only really like classic style of oracle that is in my list is the DOW Oracle. And this is just because like if I could only keep the classic style of oracle, it would have to be this one because I don't know, for me this is kind of like the mother of all oracles. I'm not saying it was the first oracle. I'm just saying for me it encompasses all of the subjects that I would want in an oracle. Oops, I have some coins in there because there's instructions in the book where you can kind of incorporate an I Ching like reading into your reading. So what was I saying? I just think this has like a lot of really good concepts, dark and light, challenges and opportunities. The art is beautiful, the borders are beautiful. It has its own system. But if you don't want to use it as a system, you don't have to. It has really good keywords and then additional like little key phrases at the bottom. So you can kind of take as much, run with whichever one is making sense to you at the moment. And I really like this. I wish more Oracle cards that had the like picture plus keyword format would include some key phrases underneath, because a lot of times the keyword is, I'm like, I don't know, that's so general, that has nothing to do with me. But then one of the key phrases will stick out as pertinent. So, but and then this one, if you want to get into the system, you can. It's as complex as tarot because it's based on the I Ching, which has been used for divination for so long. And then the book, I'm just trying to find, I don't know what I'm trying to find. I was just going to flip through some of the pages, I guess. The book is just beautifully written, and I don't know why I'm showing you the book. That's how you can read it from this angle. Yeah, so it's like, it covers all the bases for me as far as Oracle cards go. I actually don't use it that often because it is pretty, like it does kind of compete for tarot for me. But if I was only going to take one Oracle, it would definitely be that one. The next one on my list is the Empty Cup Oracle by Sassia Barrington. And she did the, oh my gosh, it's falling out of my head now. The Sisora Burrito. No, hold on guys. The title has fallen out of my head and all I can think of is the nickname that everybody calls it in the tarot world. The Sisora Burrito Tarot. So she did the tarot and this oracle, and this oracle is just beautiful. It's a symbol-based oracle, and it's the only symbol-based oracle that I have been able to get on with. I don't know why, but a lot of times symbols and I just don't, when it's just a symbol and then just the name of the symbol on the card, a lot of times I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. Like me and Lenormand, I want to, I'm looking at them and I'm not showing them to you guys. Come on, Allison. I want to learn Lenormand. I want to get better at reading symbol-based decks, but it just is not, it's not always something that my mind like can easily do. So, I'm trying to put the cards down so I don't drop them all over again. But, I also think with symbols, like they can be so specific, so individual, like so personal, that it's kind of hard to buy other people's symbol-based decks and still have personal meanings for those. And I feel like that with Lenormand, like, I don't know, a lot of the meanings that the cards have, you know, like a house is a house is a house, are not necessarily meanings that I would have for that same symbol. But those, you know, because of when it was created and it's been accumulating those meanings over time, so I struggle with remembering what the cards are supposed to mean, because I don't know that writer to me necessarily means message anymore. Like that's not how I get my messages. So I just like this one. I love the simple, you know, monochromatic illustrations. It's that soft touch, which I really like. It works well with tons of other decks because of the color palette. And it is just, it's lovely. I can make it work. It's the only symbol deck that works for me. Stacia Barrington does a lot of these. I also like her guidebooks a lot. She puts a quote in most of the, I think at the end of most of the entries. So that's always fun. So that would have to stay with me or come with me on wherever I'm going. If I want to take 10 decks, I would need my symbol-based deck. And I have two more. Second to last is the Lucky Potion Oracle. And again, this is not one that I read with a lot, but it's so unique, I had to include it. And I have a very specific reason for liking this deck as much as I do. It has this thing in it, so it has a component where you pick a card and then you can roll this die, and it tells you if you are, you pick a card, okay, sorry, let me start over. You pick a card, which is a potion. So this is this trickery potion. And it has suits. There's, I think, the 4 elements. So you would get a potion that is in wind or water, or, so wind is air, obviously, or earth or fire. And then you'd roll the dice to let you know if you're going to share it, if you're going to drink it, or if you're going to shatter the potion. The reason that I really like this card deck is, I mean, the art is amazing, and I really like the concept. I think it's kind of cool to be like, okay, what potion am I going to take today? Like, what potion can help me put it in my pocket, take it with me on the day, or drink before I head out the door? Like, what can I take to fortify me today? I think that's like a cool way of thinking about a daily draw. And I like the, you know, the monochromatic scheme with just like the one color on each card. That's really cool. But I especially like it because of the guidebook, which is written in this very narrative style. It's as if it's written in the second person, so it's all you sense, you pick up the bottle, you smell, you know, candy or whatever. And so it really puts you in the scene as if you're in like a book, and you come upon this potion and you pick it up off the shelf and you unstopper it, or you throw it on the ground to smash it, and then maybe mist rises. So it's very, to me, it feels very much like I am placed into the, into the story. But, so that in itself would be enough for me, but it sort of pushed me over the edge, and I had to get it because there is a scene in this book, The Night Circus, and I don't want to spoil it in case you haven't read it, because you really should read it. But there's a scene where there are these magicians, like magical magicians, and one of them has created a room of stoppered bottles as one of their like magic shows, and you can walk in and open one of these stoppered bottles, and each one has a scent that sort of like overwhelms you and just sort of takes you into that scene. So it might be the beach, or it might be like a spice store, but you're just sort of like actually taken into that scene. And so that's all you smell, and then you start hearing sounds, and you can actually like see the beach and hear the waves and stuff. So when I first heard of this deck, let me get back to the front, that's like immediately what I thought of, and I had to have it because it's one of my favorite books ever, and it just is like, it's so perfect and so exactly the same thing. the way that, especially with the way that the guidebook for this deck is written, yeah, they just go so perfectly together. So this one is so unique, and it has such a special place in my heart that I couldn't leave it behind. Okay, fit all the things in, put the box away. And then last is a deck called, I'm trying to find, it has this book that comes kind of separately that I made a little paper cover for it because the book is white and I knew I was gonna get it all messy. It's called The Sandwater Children, and it's by Adrian Fuller and Daniela, I don't know if that's Huber. And it's really cool. It's a deck of these cards. I think Daniela creates sigils for tattoos, and that's what these are at the bottom. And I'm not sure if she also did the art and then maybe Adrian colored it, or I'm not quite sure how the partnership worked. But so all of these images are based off of this symbol. And like this provides the meaning of the card, and then this sort of illustrates it. And the reason, let me see if I can hold these just to give you something to look at while I read. The reason that this deck I find so cool is that they created like a whole world for this deck. So the Sandwater Children are a group of people who are known to have practiced a hedonistic, animistic, and deeply spiritual tradition. They believed in the balanced existence of feminine and masculine energies in everyone and oriented themselves with 81 symbols. Let's see. And I think what would happen is like you were supposed to have gone through the experiences of these symbols in your lifetime. And each time you experienced one of these experiences that the symbols represented, one of the Sandwater Children, you would get that tattoo up the length of your spine, so that hopefully by the end of your life you would have all 81 symbol tattoos. So I mean, that's just amazing. And my love for story, I was hooked on this immediately. And it does have a system. It has but it has 33 masculine symbol cards, 33 feminine symbol cards, 14 neutral symbol cards, 1 joker card, which is the symbol for infinite knowledge, and 14 character cards, which are kind of like archetypes. And they're these ones that don't have the symbols at the bottom. So I can just read, let me see if I can read an example of some of the symbols. So there is, for example, there's making peace, selling your soul, giving away everything you own, going home, running in circles, decorating trees with flowers, making jewelry from broken glass, keeping the secret, hiding the treasure, serving tea, sewing leather, bearing buttons, pulling out your teeth, which I've gotten multiple times, while my son was losing one of his teeth actually, challenging a stranger, walking without a sound, singing to the river. And then the archetypes are like the child, the teacher, the dead, the fool, the undertaker, the maniac, the monster, catalyst, the ghost. So it's just really cool. I mean, I don't think it's like a perfect deck, and it is kind of hard to use because I have to use the guidebook with it. But for a daily pull, it's really cool. I mean, it puts you into a story. And like I said, I have gotten some weird synchronicities with this deck, like the pulling out your tooth when my son was taking forever to lose this one tooth. And he and his dad were like wiggling it, trying to get it to just come out already. So yeah, I love the style. I think it was made while the two creators were living in New Mexico, which is one of my favorite places. So it really, the colors and the landscapes in the card really remind me of that. I love the story that was created. I was also just going to say each card has in the book, down here, see, has an energy, a number, a season, an animal, and then what the reverse means for that card. So there's a lot of, you could really get into it as a system if you wanted. I usually just use it as like a daily pull, or if I'm like wanting to play with cards, but not sure. I'll still flip through these while I'm talking. If I wanted to play with cards, but I don't really want to do a reading, like I don't have a question to ask, this is the kind of deck I'll go to and just kind of read the story that goes along with it. And then if it happens to speak to something going on in my life, then that's cool. And if it doesn't, then it was still a fun sort of, you know, little creative experience that I got to have. And I'll try to remember to put the link for this one below as well, since it's kind of an unusual one. I don't think I've seen much about it online. So that's it. Those are my 10 decks. If I only could have 10 decks, those are the 10 that I would have. Although, you know, that list is very different from what it would have been a few months ago. Apart from the first 3 tarot decks, everything else was sort of, I was kind of surprised to find myself choosing. So I'm sure, you know, in another couple of months I would have a different answer, but that seems to be what most people are saying. So I guess I'm not so different. So that's all. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.